Everyone assumes planets were named the same way streets are named. Someone important points, declares a name, everyone nods, and the job is done.
Name this magnificent stretch of road Pembroke Lane.
But planet names are a little bit different. Their names are basically the result of ancient humans staring at the sky, misunderstanding almost everything they were seeing, and then projecting their gods' fears and egos on the glowing dots that absolutely did not care. For most of human history, people didn't even think planets were planets. They thought they were stars that behaved badly. Every other star stayed politely fixed in place, but these ones wandered. They drifted against the background of the sky like they were breaking some cosmic rule. So ancient astronomers gave them a name that literally meant wanderers. That's where the word planet comes from in the first place. Not science, not physics, not a white male pointing at a road and saying his last name. Just some of our ancestors looking at the sky and saying, it wanders. And once you've decided something in the sky is wandering on purpose, the next logical step is to assume it has a personality. And if it has a personality, it probably has intentions. And if it has intentions, it's obviously controlled by God. This is where the chaos really begins. Let's start with the ones people could see without telescopes, because those are the originals. Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn were visible to ancient civilizations thousands of years ago. They weren't just discovered, they were just there, looming. And because humans are humans, they immediately turn them into characters. Mercury moves fast across the sky compared to the others. It appears, disappears, reappears. So ancient Romans associated with their fastest god, the messenger, not because they measured its orbital period with equations, but because it felt quick. Venus was bright, beautiful, and impossible to ignore, especially at the dawn and dusk. Naturally, it got named after the goddess of love and beauty. Mars had a reddish glow, which ancient people interpreted as blood, violence, and chaos. So, the War of God. Jupiter was the biggest and brightest of the bunch. If you're ranking gods, that's king energy. Saturn moved slowly, taking decades to crawl across the sky, so it got linked to time, age, and harvest. So as you can tell, naming these planets weren't science conventions, they were literally personality assessments. And here's the important thing. Different civilizations did this independently. The Greeks had their own gods for these same planets. The Babylonians did too. Even ancient Chinese astronomy assigned roles and meanings. But the reason we use the Roman names today has nothing to do with accuracy and everything to do with cultural dominance. Roman naming stuck because later European scientists wrote in Latin, studied Roman texts, and basically decided those names were official. And we know history isn't fair, it's just sticky. Now fast forward to the telescope era, and this is where things get messy. Uranus was discovered in 1781, and suddenly humans had a problem. This wasn't a wandering light people had mythologized for centuries. This was a brand new dot. At first, the discoverer wanted to name it after the King of England because, of course, he did. The idea did not age well. Other astronomers pushed back hard, arguing that naming a planet after a living monarch was a terrible precedent unless we wanted future planets called things like Planet Jeff or Planet Dave. Eventually, the mythological theme won, but not without its own drama. Uranus ended up named after a Greek sky god, not a Roman one, which already breaks the pattern. Then came Neptune. By this point, astronomers were predicting planets mathematically before actually seeing them. Neptune's existence was inferred from weird gravitational effects. When it was finally observed, the name choice was almost calm by comparison. Blue color, association with the sea, Roman god of the oceans. Clean, efficient, no kings involved. Pluto, though, is where naming goes completely off the rails. Pluto was discovered in 1930, and instead of a grizzled astronomer naming it, the winning suggestion came from an 11-year-old girl. She suggested Pluto, the Roman god of the underworld. Why? Because the planet was far away, dark, cold, and mysterious. Also, the initials matched the discoverer's name, so it didn't hurt. But here's the twist. Pluto wasn't named because of mythology first. It was named because it sounded cool and symbolic. Mythology was just justification, not the driver. That's a shift. Naming had become branding. And then decades later, Pluto didn't get demoted, it got redefined out of existence. Same rock, same orbit, same distance from the sun, but in 2006, astronomers officially decided Pluto was no longer a planet, and the reason had nothing to do with Pluto changing. Humans changed the rules. By the early 2000s, telescopes had gotten so good that astronomers started finding loads of Pluto-like objects beyond Neptune. And this created an uncomfortable question. If Pluto is a planet, then what about all of these? Are we about to have 50 planets? 100? Because once you open that door, you don't get to close it again. So the scientific community did what humans do when things get really messy. they draw a line. In 2006, a formal definition of a planet was voted on. According to the new rules, a planet has to orbit the sun, be round to its own gravity, and crucially, it has to have cleared its neighborhood. In other words, it has to dominate its orbit and shove smaller objects out of the way. Pluto failed this last test. It lives in a crowded cosmic neighborhood full of smaller icy bodies. It's not the boss, it's just one of the locals. So overnight, Pluto went from the 9th planet to dwarf planet, a category that didn't even exist when it was discovered. And then when astronomers started discovering moons, things got even more messy. Moons around planets were named after mythological figures associated with the planet's god. Jupiter gets lovers and companions. Saturn gets titans. Uranus gets Shakespeare characters because someone decided mythology was getting boring. Now, modern naming of planets is handled by an international society just to stop all this chaos. They don't let people name planets after themselves anymore. They don't let corporations buy naming rights, and they definitely don't let billionaires sneak their dogs into the solar system. The rules are strict, but the legacy names remain frozen in time. So, the next time you look at a planet name, remember this. You're not looking at a scientific label, you're looking at a fossil. A leftover from a time when humans thought the sky was a storybook and every bright dot had motives. Planets weren't named because we understood them. They were named because we needed them to make sense emotionally before they ever made sense mathematically. And somehow, thousands of years later, those ancient guesses are still printed in textbooks, powering space missions, and showing up in Google Maps for the universe. And now, you know why the solar system sounds like a Roman family reunion rather than a physics lesson. And honestly, we'd probably have it that way. Because let's be real, these new names kind of sound mid. So, if this video has made you at least 1% smarter, or if you've learned anything today, like this video and subscribe to get 1% smarter with every new video. Until next time, peace.